The afternoon sun beat down on Deadwood's main street, turning the dust to gold and the air thick as molasses. Maeve O'Callahan stood at the second-story window of the Golden Rose Saloon, her considerable frame draped in emerald silk that cost more than most miners made in a year. Her fingers, heavy with rings, traced patterns on the glass as she watched the street below. She was the wealthiest woman in the Dakota Territory, and everyone knew it. The Golden Rose wasn't just any saloon. It had velvet curtains from San Francisco, a genuine crystal chandelier from New York, and a piano that had survived the journey over the Rockies. Maeve had built her empire from nothing, arriving in Deadwood 15 years ago with only the clothes on her back and a dead husband's wedding ring to pawn. Now she owned half the buildings on Main Street and had more money than she could spend in 3 lifetimes. But money, she'd learned, couldn't buy companionship. The men who courted her wanted access to her fortune or her connections. The women of decent society would not receive her. A saloon owner was barely better than her working girls in their eyes. And the working girls themselves treated her with careful respect that never quite became friendship. Below, a wagon creaked past, loaded with barrels. Maeve's nose wrinkled, the waste wagon. Deadwood was growing so fast that the old system of folks dealing with their own refuse had broken down. Last year, the town council had actually hired someone to manage the problem, collect the waste, haul it out to the ravine, keep the streets from becoming completely unlivable. The man driving the wagon was new. She'd noticed him a few weeks ago when he'd started making rounds. He was tall and lean, with shoulders that spoke of hard work and a face weathered by sun and wind. Not handsome exactly, but there was something in the way he moved. An easy confidence, a man comfortable in his own skin despite doing work that made others hold their noses and hurry past. "Miss Maeve?" Her head girl, Rosie, appeared in the doorway. "The liquor distributors hear about the fall order." Maeve turned from the window, settling her businesswoman's mask back into place. "Send him up and bring tea, the good stuff. He'll sign a better contract if he thinks we're already too wealthy to bargain hard." The afternoon dissolved into ledgers and negotiations, as most of her afternoons did. By the time she'd secured a favorable price on whiskey and gin, the sun was beginning its descent toward the hills. Maeve dismissed Rosie and returned to the window, ostensibly to watch the evening crowd begin to gather, but her eyes searched for that waste wagon. There. He'd just emerged from the alley beside Chen's laundry, guiding his horse with a gentle hand and what looked like soft words. As she watched, a group of young men in mining clothes strutted past, and one of them called out something that made his companions laugh. The waste collector's face remained impassive. He simply touched his hat brim and continued on his way. Maeve felt a sudden, fierce anger on his behalf. She knew something about being looked down upon, about being judged for how you made your living. On impulse, she swept out of her office and down the back stairs, moving faster than her bulk usually allowed. By the time she reached the street, she was breathing hard, but she'd timed it perfectly. The wagon was just passing. "You there!" she called out, then felt immediately foolish. How imperious she must sound. The man pulled his horse to a stop and turned to face her. Up close, she could see his eyes were a startling blue, like the sky after a storm. He was younger than she'd thought, perhaps 30 to her 45. "Yes, ma'am?" His voice was quiet, educated. That surprised her. Maeve found herself flustered, a rare occurrence. "The alley behind my establishment, the Golden Rose, could use an extra collection this week. We had a large shipment of goods and the crates are, well, it's quite a mess." It was a lie. Her alley was immaculate. She paid a boy to keep it clean. But the waste collector simply nodded. "I can come by tomorrow morning if that suits. Early before the street gets busy? That would be perfect. I'm Maeve O'Callahan. I own the Golden Rose." "I know who you are, ma'am. Everyone does." He touched his hat. "Thomas Fletcher, at your service." "Mr. Fletcher." She tested the name. I don't believe I've seen you in Deadwood before this summer." "No, Ma'am. I came from Denver after my wife passed, needed a fresh start, and Deadwood needed someone willing to do a necessary job." A widow, then. Something in Maeve's chest softened. "I'm sorry for your loss." "Thank you. It's been 2 years now. The grief doesn't go away, but you learn to carry it." He glanced at the darkening sky. "I should finish my rounds. I'll see you tomorrow morning, Miss O'Callahan." She watched him drive away, then shook her head at her own foolishness. A rich saloon owner and a waste collector. What on earth was she thinking? But the next morning, she found herself awake before dawn, dressed in one of her simpler dresses, though even her simple dresses were fine by most standards, and hovering near the back entrance. When she heard the wagon, she hurried out with a tray bearing coffee and fresh rolls from the bakery. Thomas Fletcher looked surprised to see her. "Miss O'Callahan, I didn't expect... You didn't need to." "It's barely sunrise, Mr. Fletcher, and you're already working. The least I can do is offer coffee." She set the tray on a relatively clean barrel. "I hope you don't mind. I know it's forward, but I find I enjoy the early morning before the world fully wakes." He studied her for a moment, and she fought the urge to fidget under his gaze. Then he smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes. "I'd be honored to share coffee with you, Miss O'Callahan. It's been a while since I had company at breakfast." They fell into an easy conversation. Thomas, it turned out, had been a school teacher in Denver before his wife's illness drained their savings. He'd come to Deadwood not just for a fresh start, but because waste management, he believed, was the backbone of civilization. "People don't think about it," he said, warming to his subject as he sipped the coffee. "They see it as dirty work beneath them. But clean water, proper waste disposal, sanitation, these are what separate a real town from a disease-ridden camp. In 10 years, the places that survive will be the ones that figured this out." Maeve found herself fascinated. "I never thought of it that way. Most don't, but you built a business from nothing. You understand the foundations matter more than the fancy trimmings." "The fancy trimmings help," she said dryly, and he laughed. It became a routine. Every few days, Maeve would invent a reason for an extra waste collection, and Thomas would arrive in the early morning, and they would share coffee and conversation. She learned about his childhood in Massachusetts, his education, his late wife Mary, who had taught piano. He learned about Maeve's journey from Ireland as a girl, her first husband, who died of cholera within a year of their arrival, her determination to never be powerless again. "You're remarkable," he said one morning, about 6 weeks into their acquaintance. "Building all this, creating something solid and lasting." Maeve felt her cheeks warm. "I'm a saloon owner, Mr. Fletcher, hardly respectable." "Respectability is what people claim when they have nothing else to offer. You have vision, determination, kindness, yes, kindness. I've watched you with your girls, with the merchants, even with the drunks you have to throw out. You treat people with dignity." "As you do," she said softly. "I've seen how gently you handle your horse, how you speak to everyone the same, whether they're the mayor or a prospector. You could have been bitter after losing your wife, your position, but instead you found purpose in work others disdain." They looked at each other across the tray of coffee cups, and Maeve felt something shift between them, like the moment before thunder. "Maeve," he said. It was the first time he'd used her given name. "I should tell you that I don't come here just for the extra work. I come because for an hour I get to talk with the most interesting woman I've ever met." Her heart hammered. "Thomas, I'm not some delicate flower. I'm older than you, and I'm..." She gestured at herself, at her substantial figure. "You're beautiful," he said simply, "and I'm a man who drives a wagon full of other people's waste. I have no money, no prospects beyond this job, nothing to offer a woman of your standing, but if you would allow it, I would very much like to court you properly." Maeve felt tears prick her eyes. When was the last time someone had seen her, really seen her, as something other than a business opportunity or an object of derision? "The town will talk," she warned. "Let them talk. Your reputation is already as low as it can go, according to most. I've nothing to lose and everything to gain." She laughed, a bit watery. "You certainly know how to turn a phrase, Mr. Fletcher." "Thomas," he corrected gently. "Thomas." She reached out and took his hand. His fingers were calloused but clean, strong and warm around hers. "Yes, I would like that very much." The town did talk, of course. The whispers started within days. The wealthy Maeve O'Callahan and that waste collector. "Have you seen them walking together on Sunday afternoons? Shameful, disgusting. She could do so much better. He must be after her money." Maeve heard it all and discovered she didn't care. For the first time in 15 years, she wasn't lonely. Thomas brought her wildflowers from the hills. Not expensive hothouse roses, but honest daisies and columbine. They discussed books. He borrowed volumes from her extensive library, and they debated philosophy and poetry. He taught her to see Deadwood the way he did, as a living organism that needed care and attention to thrive. 3 months into their courtship, one of Maeve's chief competitors, a mining investor named Horace Blackwell, cornered her at the bank. "Maeve, darling, everyone's worried about you." His smile was all teeth. "This Fletcher fellow, you must know he's only interested in your money. A man like that with a woman like you? Come now." Maeve drew herself up to her full height. "A man like what, Horace? Honest? Hard-working? Kind? Yes. How terrible for me. He picks up garbage, Maeve, and you pick the pockets of desperate miners with your crooked claims and watered-down gold. Tell me, which is more honorable?" Blackwell's face went red. "You'll regret this. When he's spent your fortune and left you, then I'll have learned something worth knowing, won't I? Now, if you'll excuse me, I have actual business to conduct." She swept past him, but his words nagged at her. Not because she believed Thomas was after her money. Their conversations, the way he looked at her, the care he took with everything he did, all spoke to genuine feeling. But what did she really know about him? They'd known each other only a few months. That evening she found Thomas at his small cabin on the edge of town. He was chopping wood, his shirt sleeves rolled up, and she stood for a moment watching the rhythmic swing of the axe, the capable way he moved. When he saw her, his face lit up. "Maeve! I wasn't expecting you. Is everything all right?" "I spoke with Horace Blackwell today. He suggested you were courting me for my money." Thomas set down the axe carefully. "And what do you think?" "I think—" She paused, choosing her words carefully. "I think I've spent my whole adult life trusting my instincts about people. I've had to survive. And my instincts tell me you're a good man. But Thomas, we should be honest with each other. You know everything I have. I know very little about your circumstances." He nodded slowly, then gestured to the cabin. "Would you like to come in? I'll show you exactly what kind of fortune hunter I am." The cabin was small, but scrupulously clean, with books lining one wall and a simple table and chairs. Thomas pulled out a battered metal box from under his bed and opened it on the table. "These are my finances. I make $30 a month from the town council for waste collection. I spend 10 on feed and care for my horse, 5 on food, 3 on necessities. The rest I save. Right now I have $97.40 to my name." Maeve looked at the carefully noted ledger, the small stack of coins and bills. "When Mary got sick," he continued, his voice steady but soft, "I sold everything we had to pay for doctors, medicines, anything that might help. After she died, I had nothing left but debts. I paid those off before I left Denver. Took me a year, but I wouldn't leave with my honor compromised. I came here with $10 and the clothes on my back. Thomas, I know what I am, Maeve. I know that by any reasonable measure I'm not a suitable match for you, but I promise you this. I have never, not once, thought about your money when I think about you. When I see you, I see a woman who makes me laugh, who challenges me, who sees the world with clear eyes and a generous heart. I see the woman I'm falling in love with." The words hung in the air between them, precious and terrifying. "I'm falling in love with you too," Maeve whispered, "and that frightens me. I've built walls for so long, Thomas. Protection. I don't know how to let them down." He crossed to her, taking both her hands in his. "Then we'll do it together, brick by brick, at whatever pace feels right. I'm not going anywhere, Maeve. Whether we court for a month or a year or 10 years, I'm here." She kissed him then, there in his humble cabin, and felt something inside her finally fully relax. This was real. This was right. Winter came to Deadwood, and with it, a crisis. A cholera outbreak swept through the mining camps, and the town council, in a panic, turned to anyone who might have answers. Thomas worked 18-hour days organizing waste disposal, teaching people about contaminated water, setting up clean water distribution points. Maeve threw open the Golden Rose as a makeshift hospital, her girls helping nurse the sick while she coordinated supplies and food distribution. They worked side by side, and the town watched as the waste collector and the saloon madam became the backbone of Deadwood's survival. Watched as Thomas Fletcher, covered in grime and exhausted, still took time to explain gently to a frightened child why he couldn't drink from the creek. Watched as Maeve O'Callahan, who could have fled to safety in San Francisco, instead emptied her warehouses to feed the hungry. When spring finally came and the epidemic faded, Deadwood had lost 40 souls, but saved hundreds more. At the town meeting, the mayor publicly thanked Thomas and Maeve, and this time there was only applause. On the first warm Sunday in April, Thomas borrowed a buggy and drove Maeve up into the hills. They spread a blanket under a cottonwood tree, and he pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. "I can't offer you wealth," he said. "I can't offer you respectability or an elevated position. I can offer you my whole heart, my absolute loyalty, and the promise that every day for the rest of my life I will work to deserve you. Maeve O'Callahan, will you marry me?" The ring was simple, a small ruby circled by silver. It must have taken him months to save for it. "Yes," Maeve said, laughing and crying at once. "Yes, you ridiculous, wonderful man. Yes." They were married in June, in the courtyard of the Golden Rose, with half of Deadwood in attendance. Maeve wore gold silk that caught the sunlight, and Thomas wore a new suit that she'd commissioned as a wedding gift. When they exchanged vows, his voice was steady and sure, and hers was warm with joy. At the reception, one of the miners approached them, hat in hand. "Ma'am, Mr. Fletcher, I just wanted to say congratulations, and to apologize. I was one of those fellows who laughed when you first started walking out together. But watching you this year, seeing how you work together, how you care for each other and for this whole damn town, well, I learned something about judging people. You're both better than the lot of us." "We're just people," Thomas said kindly. "Finding our way like everyone else." But Maeve squeezed his hand and smiled. They weren't just people. They were two souls who'd found each other against all odds, who'd chosen love over propriety, authenticity over appearance, and in doing so had built something more precious than all her gold or his gentle dignity alone. In the years to come, Thomas Fletcher would become Deadwood's first sanitation commissioner, implementing systems that made the boomtown livable. Maeve would expand her business empire while funding schools and libraries. Together, they would become known not as the waste collector and the saloon madam, but as the heart of Deadwood, proof that worth isn't measured by birth or circumstance, but by how you treat others and who you choose to love. And every morning, no matter how busy they became, they would sit together over coffee as the sun rose, talking and laughing like they had that first dawn. When a lonely woman and a hard-working man had recognized in each other something precious and rare, a true partner, a genuine love, a home in another human heart.